I even cried through that process. But I'm honestly really happy about what I've done. Everyone was telling me, "Oh, you're crazy. Why don't you just want to graduate and wrap it up, go to job market?" But that was kind of a barrier for me, I can say. But even I continued, and I'm really happy about what I did.
So this happened not long ago. This was last year. I had my existential crisis. I was questioning everything. So in PhD, you have to write a proposal on an intent of what you're trying to prove in your PhD. So that was due last year in the month of April, and I remember it was like my PhD is not over yet, so this can come again. But last year it was just I was so down that I don't know what am I doing, why am I doing, and whether this can help anyone in ever. There are so many useless questions that comes into your mind, but it's just I don't know how with the support of everyone, my family, friends, I persisted. I had that exam done, and it was great. And then I went on to my summer internship. I went to Walt Disney, and there I saw projects happening that my project can add value to their projects. So I saw real world application to the things that I'm doing my research in, that I'm actually studying day in and day out. So after coming back the 3 months of internship, I was again fresh and very pumped to do my PhD again. So there are lows in your PhD, but there are also highs that counterbalance all your experiences.
I would say my biggest barrier was somehow establishing myself as an independent researcher. So I always kind of saw myself as an assistant to my advisor, and he always kept pushing us and saying, "No, you are equal research partners with me." And I think that is an incredible quality to have in an advisor. How it manifested with me was whenever I had to buy things for my projects, I felt really bad. And so I would buy the cheapest things that could maybe get me to where I need to go, and I would operate on this very frugal budget as I'm going through my PhD. I then, a new member joined our lab, and she worked at a national research lab, and she was like, "Oh, I need silver ink, boom, $1,000 bottle. Next day, delivery, fast shipping, etc. All the marks, right?" And I learned from her what it is, how to establish. She was such an independent researcher in the National Research Lab that I learned a lot how she managed her own relationship. She wasn't waiting for my advisor to tell her, "Meet with these folks, talk with them." She was doing it on her own. And so from just watching how she operated, it inspired me to actually not ask for permission, but more for forgiveness after the fact. And to really push on my own research agenda to the point that I could now publish much quicker because I was getting the resources that I needed. But the only reason that I wasn't able to do that in the beginning was, again, this feeling of imposter syndrome. Now, if you ask my peers, did Cesar experience imposter syndrome? Was there anything? They would be shocked to hear me say this out loud. And that's the other thing. It's such an internalized feeling that everybody feels in different degrees that we just have to have a bigger conversation about.
I don't remember that I have any significant barrier to like to prevent me from pursuing a PhD degree. So actually, my answer is very straightforward because at the beginning, I know that I would like to pursue my career in academia, and then the only option for me is to get a PhD degree. So, and then I would like to briefly elaborate like the benefits of being a faculty. So one thing is freedom. So now you are university students and you have summer and winter. But once you work, let's say in industry, probably you only have 1 month of holiday throughout the entire
2 weeks.
winter, summers, our holiday. Can you imagine that? Right, but this is something that secret I only share with my students under the table. Uh, so this is a huge motivation for me to pursue my PhD degree, right? So if the benefit or the good side of something is really powerful, is really persuasive, then it helps you to conquer all the difficulties that you might come across when you try to achieve your goal, right?
Great. Questions? So I finished with my last question. Is there any skill that you think that doing PhD you learn that you wouldn't learn if you went to job market right after graduating?
For me, it was the capability of being able to think independently. And everybody said the same thing, but that's what a PhD helps you learn, and that's what the expectations are when you get a PhD, is that you can think independently. I mean, I have people who say, I need this, and that's all they have to give me. I don't need somebody to give me all of the details, I just need, this is the end result, and then they know that I can go do it.
I can say you can learn how to fail and how to learn from your own failure. And at work, maybe if you fail, your manager or someone tell you about that. When you're doing your research, you should evaluate yourself and say that either you failed or not. So I think that's a very good skill that you learn that help you in anything. It's not just through the work, even in your family, it helps a lot, right?
I can sum up everything in the word entrepreneurship. PhD is, I think, in a way, makes you an entrepreneur. You fail, you work on something that nobody knows, you have an idea in your brain that you want to prove it to the world. It's without money, of course, PhD. But all the skills, thinking independently, having faith in yourself, having no support. I mean, of course, the support of family and friends, but again, you see your peers, your friends going ahead, buying cars, Instagram full of them. But yes, but you know that your idea can work one day, and you go on with all the love that you have for that. So I think it makes you an entrepreneur in that way.
I think the single biggest benefit of a PhD is finding a research community. So, we talk about writing papers, but it turns out other people read them. And so we, as researchers, meet together in conferences across the world, traveling to all different parts to meet each other and discuss our latest experiments and research. And so over the years, I've been so fortunate to meet so many interesting minds, and going to conferences is a lot like going to family reunions. And I think that's probably the most, my most cherished aspect of continuing in academia, is being connected to a larger research community.
The skills that I learned from PhD study, as well as actually the skills that I'm still trying to gain from work, is the first one is collaboration. You collaborate with advisor or other PhD students or master students on some projects, and it is important because most of the time you cannot accomplish the project on your own. And this is the same case actually for faculty, because a couple of faculty members collaborate with some project from of different backgrounds, and then come up with some novel new ideas. And the other skill that I'm still trying to learn, have been learning since my PhD study, is communication. To talk to people, to share my research, and to tell them what I'm working on. And actually communication also includes writing skills, not only for writing papers, but more importantly for writing proposals from the perspective of faculty. And these two skills are, I think, not only important if you plan to pursue a career in academia, but also if you plan to join industry, some companies in the future, like collaboration and communication with people. Those are the most two critical techniques that I have been trying to gain since my PhD study.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions?
We know you have them.
Yeah,
2 minutes left.
2 minutes. You have to. Yes.
What inspired you to pursue your specific subfield within computer science?
That's fine. So I chose human-computer interaction, but specifically digital fabrication, because when I started my PhD, it was the latest craze. I had no experience in it before. I was interested in it and started that way. At this point, when people are doing their PhDs now, it's all virtual reality and augmented reality. So I feel that this answer is really what is current and trending was the way that I chose my subfield.
Even I chose human-computer interaction because I said I was very creative and I wanted to be in the front-end side of the computers and see how humans interact with them in that arena. So when you are trying to figure out, start with what you're interested in. If you're not interested, nothing matters. So try to find what you're interested in, and then once you find that area, think about the next 5 to 10 years. What's the latest thing? What can be used? What is going to be the future demand of the world? And so I chose the area of virtual and augmented reality because that is going to be the next thing, I think. So in that way, there's AI, there's self-driving cars, machine learning, different areas. And these areas can be applied on any spectrum, from front end to back end. So you can choose based on that.
I can say that I didn't choose the sub area. I find where is my strength. Fundamentally, I can say. So after a while, I understand that, for example, I am good at, let's say, any different solving problems over graph data structures. And I know the math, I'm good at theory. So these are the fundamental things that I have. Now, honestly, you see that, for example, in my PhD, I've been working on some sub-problem of, let's say, social network analysis over graphs. Now I switched to deep learning over graphs. So if you know what fundamental you're good at, you can actually, it's easy, as soon as you learn, it's easy to switch among field, but still having the same fundamental. Maybe it's good for your PhD, you stick to something, definitely, that helps a lot. You need to be very careful about switching. I don't recommend people to change fields, but yeah, you should know where you're good at fundamentally, and then kind of find an application you like, and then you will find a lab that you want to join.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, thank you very much. It was a great panel. And we have our next session, right? Workshop.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
go back to work.
well, I actually encourage students